We have built a giant cult around the grand finale. Marble crypts, pompous epitaphs, posthumous glory. We desperately want to believe that passing away is always a dramatic orchestral chord. But sometimes the Grim Reaper gets drunk and switches to the genre of cheap slapstick comedy. Evolution gave us a brain to split the atom, but forgot to install the patch for pure absurdity. You can survive a war, survive going over a waterfall, or rule an empire, and then kick the bucket choking on a toothpick, break your neck tripping on your own beard, or get hit in the face by a falling cow right in your own bedroom. We think of ourselves as the crown of creation, but our self-preservation system is fatally bugged. Today we are dissecting 33 historical proofs that the universe has a sick sense of humor. 33 of the most ridiculous and stupid deaths in human history. Take off your crowns. We begin. Fact 1. Ancient Greeks stand up with a lethal outcome. Imagine the antique philosopher Chrysippus. This guy was the elite of his time, sort of an ancient Steve Jobs of logic and stoicism, whose lectures gathered crowds of fans in togas. He spent days pondering the nature of being, the structure of the universe, and the high purpose of man. And then this giant of thought, father of Greek democracy, walks into the yard and sees an amazing scene. A drunk donkey is enthusiastically eating his personal elite figs. You would think shoo the animal away or sigh philosophically. But our thinker catches such an existential cringe that he starts laughing. He laughs so hard, as if he was shown the most genius meme compilation in history. Eventually, his diaphragm cannot take the heat of ancient Greek humor, the brain is left without oxygen, and the great Stoic suffocates on his own laughter. We spend years acting like serious intellectuals searching for the meaning of life, and in the end, we can be multiplied by 0 by a hooved, alcoholic chewing fruit. What a brilliant allegory for our entire civilization. Your cat looks at you with judgment, and he is absolutely right. Fact 2. Aerial delivery of armored killers. There lived Aeschylus, the father of tragedy, a man who made whole amphitheaters weep. And he just had to believe local fortune tellers who predicted that the great playwright would die from a falling house. What does our genius do? He switches on maximum paranoia mode, packs his things, and moves to an open field far away from any architecture. The plan was as reliable as a Swiss watch. No walls, no roofs, total safety. But he did not account for one small detail in the form of a hungry eagle soaring in the stratosphere. The eagle was carrying a tortoise and looking for a good hard rock to crack its shell. And now imagine this oil painting from the bird's perspective. Oh, excellent smooth stone down there, shining in the sun. That stone turned out to be the perfectly bald head of our paranoid friend. The birdie opens its claws and the reptile performs a perfect dive right onto the crown of the creator of Greek drama. This is literally a script for a Final Destination movie. You can run from mortgages and bad real estate, but you cannot dodge a flying tortoise. Checkmate, psychics. Fact 3. Toxic biohacking of the first emperor. Qin Shi Huang united China, built the Great Wall, and created the Terracotta Army. The man was so cool his ego had its own gravity. Naturally, such an alpha male did not plan to just retire. He wanted to live forever, to rule the universe. The emperor gathered the best healers, sort of ancient nutritionists, and demanded an elixir of immortality. And these guys in robes rolled out a premium smoothie for him, only instead of chia seeds and spirulina, it was pure 100% liquid mercury. And our genius ruler started chugging this heavy metal every single day, firmly believing he was becoming a deity. Today we laugh at this, ordering dubious supplements on the internet for thousands to extend our youth. But the essence has not changed one bit. We pour the periodic table into ourselves just the same if the jar says the trendy word detox. The emperor literally turned his insides into a thermometer and lawfully went off the rails of common sense. Good luck explaining that to your modern gastroenterologist. Fact 4. The deadly label of good manners. Tycho Brahe was the rock star of astronomy of his time. He had a silver nose, replacing one chopped off in a duel, a pet alcoholic moose, and his own castle. It seemed the man lived life to the fullest. But one day, this rebel of science ended up at a royal dinner party. They ate a lot, drank even more. Naturally, the laws of physics were not cancelled, and the great astronomer urgently needed to visit the restroom. But then, that firmware we get installed in childhood kicked in. What will people think? How can you leave the table before the monarch? It is rude. So Brahe sat, endured, sweated, smiled, and made small talk until his bladder turned into an overinflated balloon at a kid's party. Internal pressure reached critical mass, organs failed, and the man who discovered supernovas burned out from false modesty. We still fear saying a wrong word to the boss or going to the toilet during a boring meeting. For what? To save face? Your body is just in shock from such politeness. At least he left the chat as a well-behaved boy. Fact 5. Devil's advocate to the max. Clement Vallandigham was a lawyer sent by God, an attorney who could have gotten Darth Vader off in a jury trial. He was defending a client accused of murder in a bar. The defense theory was genius. The victim accidentally pulled the trigger himself while pulling the gun from his pocket. To prove this to the jury, Clement decided to conduct an experiment right in the courtroom. He takes the gun, which, by all genre laws they forgot to unload, theatrically shoves it in his pocket, pulls, and brilliantly demonstrates the theory on his own liver. Short, shock applause. The lawyer drops dead, proving his point at the cost of his own life. The client, by the way, was fully acquitted. This is just top-tier client service and 100% dedication. You complain about getting tired at the office shuffling papers? This guy literally laid his life on the altar of jurisprudence for some shady character. Now that is what I call ideal efficiency and meeting targets at any cost. Are you weak enough to defend your quarterly reports like that? Fact 6. Gravity always wins in corporate disputes. Let us transport to Toronto. Lawyer Gary Hoy loved cheap show-off moves in front of interns. He had a signature trick, proving to students that the windows in their elite skyscraper were made of bulletproof, absolutely indestructible glass. To cement the material, he would get a running start and throw himself with all his might at the 24th floor window. And you know what is the funniest part? He was absolutely right. The marketers did not lie. The glass really turned out to be unbreakable. It did not crack or shatter. It just elegantly flew out of the window frame together with Mr. Hoy flying into the sunset. This is a classic illustration of our blind faith in technology. We buy armored phone cases hoping they save us from our own clumsiness. We believe quality certificates more than Newton's laws of physics. Gary proved the material quality but forgot to check the mounting foam quality. A wonderful lesson that the system always breaks where you least expect it. An exciting flight and a hard landing in reality. Fact 7. The killer image of an Austrian mayor. Hans Steininger was a town leader, but he went down in history not for reforms, but for his 5-foot beard. It was his personal brand, his logo, his pride. He wore it rolled up in a special pocket, like a hipster carries his craft coffee. But one day, a fire started in the town. Panic, screams, smoke. Our valiant mayor jumps up to lead the evacuation, and in the chaos forgets to pack his facial hair. He takes an epic step, steps on his own beard with a heavy boot, loses balance, and snaps his neck with a crunch. We spend huge resources creating an image. We choose uncomfortable shoes, tight suits, inject chemicals into our faces just to match the status. And in the end, our own show-offs become our main enemy. Hans became a victim of his own uniqueness, getting tangled in what was supposed to command respect. An ideal metaphor for modern fashion, where people are ready to literally break their necks for beauty. Bravo, the fashion industry gives a standing ovation. Fact 8. Gastronomic fiasco of blue bloods. Swedish monarch Adolf Fredrik lived by the all-inclusive principle and denied himself nothing. His official title in history books sounds like the king who ate himself to death. Imagine a banquet. The man already downed lobsters, caviar, cabbage, meat, and washed it down with gallons of champagne. The stomach is already screaming for mercy and sending signals straight to the brain. but then they bring dessert. Traditional buns with hot milk, and our crowned glutton eats not one, not two, but 14 huge portions. The monarch's digestive system looked at this lawlessness, said enough, and simply stopped, causing fatal indigestion. We look at the fridge shelf every evening with the same excitement, promising ourselves this piece of cake is definitely the last. We turned calorie consumption into a national sport, where the loser gets a subscription to a cardiologist. The king proved that no army or treasury will save you from your own greed. The end by overdose of baked goods sounds like a bad joke. Fact 9. The Parisian tailor and the laws of aerodynamics. Franz Reichelt was a simple tailor, but at heart considered himself a genius engineer of the early 20th century. He sewed a unique parachute coat from a pile of fabric and ropes. To prove his genius to the world and get investments, he decided to jump from the Eiffel Tower. A crowd of onlookers, journalists, cameras. The ideal startup presentation. Franz hesitated on the edge for a long time, as if suspecting that physics laws cannot be cheated by a piece of canvas. But ego defeated the instinct of self-preservation. He jumped. The coat naturally wrapped around him like a useless cocoon, and our innovator left a decent-sized crater in the Parisian ground. We so often believe in magic solutions, quick diets, courses on successful success, miracle gadgets. We are offered outright nonsense wrapped in a beautiful idea, and we are ready to jump from a metaphorical tower, hoping this rag will save us. Franz became a pioneer of crash tests for human stupidity, showing that marketing without real testing works only in one direction: down. Rest in peace, startup founder. Fact 10. Dental revenge from the other side. Viking Sigurd the Mighty was a tough guy with an axe who solved problems radically. He defeated his enemy, chopped off his head, and to show off to the boys, tied this trophy to his horse's saddle. He rides looking all cool, celebrating triumph, when suddenly the horse jumps, and the dead head vengefully scratches Sigurd's bare leg with its protruding tooth. In those glorious times, antibiotics had not been delivered yet, so the slightest scratch turned into Russian roulette. The leg swelled, wild sepsis began, and the great warrior ingloriously kicked the bucket from an infection introduced by the guy he killed a couple of hours ago. This is just a genius level of karma. We also love dragging trophies of our victories around, bragging about status and humiliating competitors, not understanding that the past can always bite us in the soft spot at the most unexpected moment. Toxicity always returns to its creator, even if it no longer has a torso. That is how losers win wars dry. Fact 11. PR stunt in the mouth of a volcano. Empedocles was another ancient thinker with a superiority complex. He told his students for so long that he grasped all the universe's secrets that he eventually believed in his own divinity himself. To prove to the flock that he was an immortal deity to whom earthly laws did not apply, he came up with a grand performance. He gathered an audience, climbed the active volcano Etna, and with the pathos of the Terminator, sinking into molten metal, jumped right into the boiling lava. Naturally, the lava did not appreciate the philosophical works and instantly incinerated the newly minted god, spitting back only one of his bronze sandals. This is the apotheosis of personal branding. Today, bloggers do crazy stunts for likes, risking freedom and their necks. But Empedocles was just the pioneer of this trash streaming. He literally burned out at work for reach and audience loyalty. An ideal example of how blind faith in one's own exceptionalism turns a person into a crispy ember. Well, how do you like our cabinet of curiosities of human magnificence? Do you already want to wipe the screen with antiseptic? Or do a face palm with both hands? Wait, do not run for sedatives. We have not even reached the middle of this festival of dementia and courage. Take a deep breath and realize that the genetic code of these people still circulates in our population. Fact 12. Deadly fan love. Athenian lawmaker Draco was incredibly popular. His laws were harsh, but the people literally adored him. Ancient Greeks had a strange tradition. As a sign of deepest respect, they threw clothes at their idol. Cloaks, tunics, and hats. So Draco performs at the stadium. The crowd is in ecstasy. A reign of wardrobe begins. People throw their gear with such frenzy that in a couple of minutes, a real textile mountain forms on stage. Security did not manage to intervene, and the beloved politician stupidly suffocated under piles of dirty ancient rags. Are you scared of cancel culture? Look at adoration culture. We love raising idols to a pedestal so much that we end up choking them with our attention and expectations. From love to asphyxia is one throw of a cloak. Fact 13. Zoo with royal consequences. King Alexander of Greece decided to break up a fight on his palace grounds. Who was fighting? Enemy spies? Political opponents? No, his favorite German shepherd locked horns with a pet macaque. The monarch, forgetting status and security, dives barehanded into this animal mess. The monkey, recognizing no authorities, bites the king on the leg. Seems like nonsense. Put some ointment on and go rule further. But the primate's saliva turned out to be richer in bacteria than a public toilet at a train station. Blood poisoning begins. And in a few days, a whole country loses a ruler because of a crazy macaque's bite. This changes the course of history for a whole region. We constantly meddle in other people's conflicts, try to reconcile colleagues, relatives, or commenters on the internet, not understanding that in the process we will get our heads bitten off. Sometimes it is better to let monkeys sort it out themselves than try to bring order to someone else's chaos and get toxic infection. A rabies shot would have saved an empire. Fact 14. The last phrase of a self-confident general. General John Sedgwick during the U.S. Civil War was distinguished by incredible courage and absolute contempt for the enemy. During a heavy battle, his soldiers were hiding in trenches from heavy sniper fire. The general did not like this. He proudly stood full height on the edge of the trench and started lecturing his fighters for cowardice, delivering the legendary phrase, "They could not hit an elephant at this distance." Fate, as we know, adores irony and hates braggarts. Before the last letter flew off his lips, a sniper bullet arrived exactly under his left eye, cutting short the speech and the life. This is just a benchmark, crystal clear example of cognitive bias and overestimation of one's own powers. We are so often sure of our invulnerability on roads, in business, in relationships, challenging common sense. We think rules are written for fools, and we are the chosen ones. The sniper of reality does not miss, especially when you draw a target on your own forehead for cheap show-offs. Fact 15. Irony of fate made of mahogany. Commander Arthur Aston was a tough guy defending an Irish city from Cromwell's troops. He had one distinctive feature, a massive wooden leg, a prosthesis he was surely proud of and used to scare subordinates. When the city fell and enemy soldiers broke into his office, they were so enraged by his stubborn resistance that they decided not to waste bullets. They tore off his own prosthesis and beat the commander into oblivion forever with it. This is some transcendent level of black humor from the universe. You get destroyed by what was supposed to serve as your support. In the modern corporate environment, the same thing happens. Our own inventions, our genius regulations and control tools sooner or later start hitting us on the head by the hands of our own competitors or bosses. What we lean on becomes our doomsday weapon. Pinocchio clearly would not approve of such use of wood. Fact 16. How a toothpick defeated a tyrant. Agathocles was the ruler of Syracuse, a real monster in the flesh. He won bloody wars, survived dozens of cunning assassination attempts, crushed rebellions, and slaughtered elites. The man was armored better than a presidential limousine. And then this unkillable Terminator of antiquity decides to pick his teeth with an ordinary wooden toothpick after a hearty lunch. Either his hand slipped or he got distracted by thoughts of new executions, but a splinter gets stuck in his throat. He chokes, suffocates, inflammation starts, and the terror of the entire Mediterranean ingloriously goes into oblivion from a piece of wood the size of a match. We build security systems around us, install smart locks, fear global catastrophes and meteor strikes. But in reality, the system collapses from the slightest unaccounted bug in banal everyday life. All our imaginary security bursts like a soap bubble in the face of elementary chance. Even Darth Vader could have just choked on a cookie on the dark side. Fact 17. The insect that changed geopolitics. Pope Adrian IV was one of the most influential people on the planet. He commanded kings, distributed lands, excommunicated entire states. His power seemed absolute and unshakable. One fine day, the pontiff approached a fountain to take a sip of wine and refresh himself. At that moment, a small, unknown fly performs a kamikaze maneuver and flies right into his airways. The Pope starts coughing, suffocating, and in a few minutes heads to a meeting with the one whose vicar he was on earth. This is just nature's mockery of human hierarchy. All this pomp, golden tiaras, Swiss guards, and absolute power are multiplied by zero by a common two-winged insect that does not even really have a brain. Do you still think you control your life and business processes, planning 10 years ahead? Tell your ambitions to that fly, it will gladly correct your tight schedule. Fact 18. Exquisite drink with a taste of treason. George Plantagenet was a duke who got involved in Game of Thrones for the English crown. He lost, was convicted of high treason, and sentenced to the ultimate penalty. But since he was the king's brother, he was allowed to choose the method of departure to the other world. Being a complete aesthete and alcoholic, George demanded to be drowned in a giant barrel of sweet wine, and the executioners obliged. The Duke was literally marinated alive in elite alcohol. This is the highest form of consumer perversion. We are so obsessed with the idea of comfort and premium quality that we are even ready to destroy ourselves, as long as it looks expensive and prestigious. We take loans for iPhones, lease cars we cannot service, and drown in a swamp of debts, comforting ourselves that this is the beautiful life. George showed us a master class on how to turn one's own punishment into a tasting. The main thing is that at the bottom of the barrel there is a residue of prestige. Fact 19. Bureaucracy on water. Queen of Thailand. Sunanda Kumari Ratana was sailing on a luxurious boat down the river, surrounded by dozens of servants and guards. Suddenly the boat capsizes. The queen flounders in the water, not knowing how to swim. Around her are plenty of healthy men who could pull her out in a second, but no one even moved a finger. Why? Because the country had the strictest law. A commoner was forbidden to touch a person of royal blood, under pain of agonizing execution. And all this entourage stood and watched their ruler go to the bottom, stupidly following the job description. This is the quintessence of corporate idiocy. We are so afraid to violate regulations, go outside the rules, and get a reprimand from management that we are ready to watch a project, company, or common sense fly into the abyss. The gatekeeper syndrome in the terminal stage. The instruction was followed to the last letter. At least not a single paragraph of the legal contract was harmed. Fact 20. The joke that stopped a heart. Martin of Aragon, ruler of Sicily and Aragon, had a hearty dinner of a whole roasted goose. He already had mild indigestion, but then his favorite jester Bora barges into the chambers. The king asks, "Where have you been hanging around?" The jester delivers some absolutely ridiculous joke about a deer that got its tail tangled in a vineyard. And this phrase hits exactly the target. The monarch starts laughing. He laughs so hard he cannot stop. The stomach, filled to the brim with fatty goose, presses on the diaphragm. A suffocation attack begins, and the king suffocates from laughter right on his throne. We are used to thinking that stress and depression ruin us, while positivity prolongs life. We are taught to be positive, consume endless entertainment content, but an overdose of entertainment can be just as fatal. We overfeed our brain with memes to the point of nausea until we lose the ability to think critically. The king suffered from content overdose even before the invention of the internet. Fact 21. Musical gangrene for the maestro. Jean-Baptiste Lully was the chief composer at the court of Louis XIV. In those times, conductors did not wave light batons like wizards from Hogwarts. They beat time with a huge heavy iron staff, pounding it on the floor. And so the maestro, in a fit of creative ecstasy, smashes this sledgehammer through his toe with a swing. Infection begins. Doctors beg to amputate the toe, but Lully refuses. How will he dance at balls? Eventually, the infection takes over the leg and the composer goes off to conduct angels. This is a classic story about the inability to cut off toxic assets in time. We cling so much to sick relationships, losing businesses, or bad habits, hoping everything will resolve itself. We fear losing a small part of comfort, eventually losing everything entirely. The maestro literally hammered himself with his own professionalism. Art requires sacrifice, but amputation would clearly have been cheaper. Fact 22. Pioneer of railway mincemeat. William Huskisson was a prominent British politician at the opening of the world's first passenger railway. Trains then travelled at the speed of a tired pony, and people did not yet understand the physics of this heavy machine. During a stop, William decided to run across the tracks to greet the Duke. He thought a train was like a carriage with horses that would always brake for a gentleman. The result is lawful. A multi-ton steam machine grinds the first person in history under its steel wheels. We love introducing new technologies into our lives, not reading safety instructions at all. We implant chips, trust autopilots, give our data to neural networks, assuming progress is obliged to be friendly to us. We walk onto the tracks of a digital locomotive with open arms, and it just drives according to schedule. Ignorance does not exempt from responsibility before the laws of physics. Stop for a second. Do you feel your self-esteem growing? You are sitting on the couch, whole, and no one is dropping turtles on your head or feeding you liquid metal. I am proud of your survival skills. You are already smarter than half of historical figures, but do not relax. Stupidity evolves along with technology. Let us move on. Fact 23. Inventor in his own web. Thomas Migley was a genius chemist and engineer. When he fell ill with polio and ended up bedridden, his brain did not give up. He constructed a complex system of pulleys, belts, and counterweights to lift himself from bed independently. It was a masterpiece of engineering thought. In one day, this complex chain malfunctioned. The belts tangled around the neck of their creator and cold-bloodedly strangled him. This is simply a manifesto of the modern smart home. We surround ourselves with smart gadgets, creating a web of comfort. And one fine day, we forget the password, and we find ourselves hostages of our own comfort. Technology always finds a way to take revenge on its creators. Fact 24. How an orange defeated Niagara. Bobby Leach was a real daredevil extremist. He became the second person in history to survive falling from Niagara Falls in a steel barrel. He went through hell, broke bones, but emerged victorious against the elements. He seemed like an invulnerable superhero from Marvel Comics. Now let us fast forward a couple of years. This conqueror of waterfalls walks down the street, steps on a banal orange peel, slips epically, breaks his leg. Gangrene sets in, the leg is cut off, but he still departs to a better world from complications. This is the greatest irony from Lady Luck. We can survive crises, build corporations in conditions of chaos, defeat severe diseases, and then our life collapses because of one ridiculous word, a stupid message, or a forgotten document. We armor ourselves against global threats, leaving the visor open for the smallest trash under our feet. The waterfall could not do it, but the citrus handled it perfectly. Fact 25. The safe that defeated a legend. Famous Jack Daniel, whose name graces millions of bottles, came to work one morning. He needed to get documents from the safe, but he forgot the password. Spun the dial back and forth, does not open. Instead of exhaling and calling a master, Jack falls into a rage and kicks this rebellious piece of iron with his foot with all his might. Result? A broken toe, blood poisoning, and the finale. The man who created an alcohol empire could not cope with his own anger. This is an ideal illustration of emotional burnout and loss of control. We snap at technology, bang our fist on the table, scream at a frozen computer like savages trying to punish an evil spirit in a stone. We think our aggression will bend reality to us, but reality always turns out to be harder. The iron box remained silent, and Jack signed his own one-way ticket. Never hit something that cannot feel pain. Fact 26. Gold medal for a lifeless champion. Arishion was a star of ancient sports, a Pancration wrestler at the Olympic Games. The rules were simple: hit, break until the opponent gives up. In the final, the opponent grabbed Arishion's neck and started ruthlessly breaking it. Arishion understands this is the end. With his last strength losing consciousness, he grabs the enemy's leg and twists it with such a crunch that he howls in pain and raises his hand in surrender. Exactly at this second, Arishion's neck breaks finally and he gives up the ghost. The judges are in shock, but rules are rules. The opponent surrendered first. A winner's wreath is solemnly put on the body. This is the most precise metaphor for modern workaholism. We work 3 jobs, sit on stimulants, ruin health to close a project. We defeat competitors, get a promotion, a bonus, status, and instantly burn out at 35. An excellent cup. Only a pity there is no one to celebrate. An ideal finale for the ideal employee of the year. Fact 27. Sports injury of a French king. Charles VIII adored watching tennis so much that he was ready to run through the whole palace for it. One day he was in such a hurry to a match that he rushed through corridors like a madman and stupidly forgot to duck before a low stone door. A dull thud rang out, worthy of old cartoons. The monarch rammed the lintel with his forehead with such force that he fell into a coma and gave his soul to God a few hours later. This is simply an anthem to haste and inattention. We are constantly rushing somewhere. Faster to read news, faster to reply in chat, faster to overtake a truck on the highway. We are so afraid of missing something interesting, that fear of missing out syndrome, that we smash our foreheads against banal reality. The king lost an empire simply because he did not look where he was going. An excellent sports injury for a man who did not even pick up a racket. Stone defeated the crown with a score of 1-0. Fact 28. Philosophical departure by a sign from the universe. Zeno of Citium was the founder of Stoicism, a school that teaches accepting fate without emotion. The old man lived 72 years, was in total order. One day he was leaving school, tripped and broke a toe. An ordinary person would curse and go to a doctor. But Zeno decided otherwise. He perceived this microtrauma as a sign from above. "Earth has called me," he declared profoundly. After that, the philosopher simply lay on the ground and held his breath until he suffocated. This is some transcendent level of self-suggestion. We constantly look for secret signs of the universe, read horoscopes, see karmic meaning in the fact that our coffee boiled over or a tire went flat. We are ready to justify any of our failures with Mercury retrograde. Zeno proved that if you are stubborn and esoteric enough, you can stop your heart with the power of thought because of a bruised toe. A gorgeous example of how woe from wit inflicts irreparable damage faster than any disease. Fact 29. Perfectionism on the tip of a sword. François Vatel was a legendary chef, organizer of grand royal banquets. For the visit of the king himself, he ordered carts with the freshest fish. The morning of the banquet, Vatel waits, but no fish. An hour passes, another. He understands the schedule is collapsing. Guests will be left without seafood. For his refined nature, this was unthinkable shame and reputation collapse. Unable to withstand the stress, he goes to his room and pierces himself with a sword. And you know what the juice is? Literally 10 minutes later, carts with that accursed fish drove into the courtyard. This is the apogee of toxic perfectionism. We drive ourselves crazy over missed deadlines, over a typo in a presentation, over a courier being 5 minutes late. We destroy our nerve cells for an ideal result that no one, by and large, needs on such a scale. Vatel turned his body into a kebab because of logistics delays. Learn to delegate, gentlemen, otherwise a sword will be found for everyone. Fact 30. Innovative test drive on a cliff. Multimillionaire Jimmy Heselden bought the company producing Segways, those two-wheeled things with a handlebar that tourists ride in parks. He believed in his brainchild so much that he decided to personally test the gadget's passability on the territory of his huge estate. He drove onto a path along a steep cliff above a river. The equipment, designed to keep balance perfectly, malfunctioned, or Jimmy himself could not handle the control, but the result is the same. The company owner on his own product solemnly flew into the abyss. This is a damn accurate allegory for modern venture business. We create products, swear by their 100% safety, impose this illusion on investors and consumers, and then fall to the bottom ourselves, becoming victims of our own business models. He believed in the advertising brochure more than in gravity. The Segway stood firm, but the reputation got a little wet together with the creator. Fact 31. Air attack by cattle. Brazilian João Maria de Souza was sleeping in his bed, in his house, under his roof. Seemed like the safest place on the planet, but the house stood on the slope of a steep hill where a herd was grazing. One well-fed cow weighing about a ton decided to take a shortcut and wandered onto the flimsy tiled roof of João's house. The roof cracked, and a ton of fresh beef crashed right onto the sleeping man. He did not survive this meeting with fauna. If you ever thought you could fully control your risks, remember this cow. You can eat right, invest in reliable funds, follow all laws, and then some dumb beast falls on you from the sky simply because it felt like it. This is the quintessence of the randomness of being. You fear terrorists, viruses, and masons, and the universe sends a cow to you through the ceiling just because it wanted to. Insurers clearly did not know what rate to apply for this force majeure. Fact 32. Fiery physiotherapy of the Bad King. Charles II, nicknamed the Bad, fell ill with a severe cold. Local medical luminaries prescribed him an innovative therapy. The monarch was tightly wrapped, like a mummy, in bandages generously soaked in strong brandy, so that not a single germ would survive. The procedure was performed by a maid. Having finished swaddling, she realized she had no scissors to cut the thread end. The brain switched on genius mode. She decided to simply burn through the thread with a candle flame. Alcohol, bandages, open fire. Charles flared up like a giant match and burned in his own bed. We constantly look for complex, expensive, elite ways to solve simple problems. Instead of drinking tea with honey, we climb into pressure chambers, inject plasma, drink toxic tinctures. And then we are surprised why the treatment kills faster than the disease itself. Medicine for the rich sometimes turns into an impressive fire show due to a banal human factor. Do not forget scissors, gentlemen. Fact 33. Political hunger strike with a sad outcome. Famous Athenian orator Isocrates was a living monument to a healthy lifestyle. He lived to 98 years in absolute health, which for antiquity is basically equivalent to immortality. But one day he found out his native Athens signed a humiliating, in his opinion, political peace treaty with Philip of Macedon. What does the sage do? Writes an angry text? Organizes the opposition? No. Out of principle, he refuses food and starves himself to the very end in protest. We spend millions to prolong our lives, buy fitness subscriptions, drink collagen, and then we destroy our own psyche and health ourselves because of news in politics that we cannot influence at all. We let global information trash into our life and allow it to suck all the juices out of us. Isocrates gave 100 years of life for a piece of paper everyone forgot in a year. A magnificent investment in nothing. So we have reached the bottom of this rabbit hole full of absurdity, conceit, and ridiculous mistakes. We laughed at philosophers, kings, and lawyers, but the truth is that inside each of us sits our own little emperor drinking mercury for likes, or a proud Viking dragging past problems around. The system is not broken, it just consists of us. You can hide from eagles, check windows for strength, or avoid geese, but stupidity will find you where you feel safest. So take off your crowns, exhale, and stop taking yourselves so seriously. If you burst into nervous laughter or were made to think, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and send this video to those who believe too much in their own exceptionalism. And now your homework, gentlemen survivors. Write your version for the 34th fact in the comments. What is the most ridiculous real-life situation you have seen with your own eyes? Let us see if you can outdo the Athenian turtle. Talk soon!